Hi there, CoronaTV viewers. I'm Johnny Damon.
You're my bobblehead doll today, just nod up and down if you agree. Welcome to the show, Mitch Joel. How are you?
Happy birthday to you.
And just look at those washboard abs.
I know, right? Oh yeah, this is the fittest I've ever been in my life, you know.
Happy birthday from Johnny Damon.
First of all, let's just do the elbow bump. So what I've realized is that whenever I start Corona TV at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Zach King, who is huge on Instagram and TikTok, is also starting a live video. So Zach, you need to come on my show. I need to come on your show. More importantly, stop cannibalizing my viewers. I'm just kidding. Welcome, everybody. It is Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Although, you know, I just did a poll on LinkedIn now, which is Memorial Day. Are you doing anything on Memorial Day? Do you care? Is it even a Memorial Day? Is it the same as any other day? Are you go to the poll on my LinkedIn profile and tell me exactly what you're doing and what your plans are. I am going to be moving at 100 miles per hour. Oh, by the way, do you like my beautiful villa, my slumming it in the Hamptons? I was actually on earlier talking to Brian Solis, my guest today, and he was like, man, he was like looking, is that a virtual background? He wasn't sure. And I said, yeah, look, it's my little palace in the Hamptons. I don't like to brag. I don't like to, you know, use Instagram and social media to put out or portray that my life is better than it actually is, because nobody does that on social media, right? So I decided to be a little bit vulnerable and transparent and show you my wonderful villa in the Hamptons. And if you believe that I actually have a villa in the Hamptons, then you don't know me very well. It is in fact a green background. It is no doubt a virtual background. So let me get through my preamble as quickly as I can so that I can bring on the man, Brian Solis. And how lucky am I to have had David Meerman Scott, Mark Schaefer, Jay Baer, Brian Solis. I mean, I am just having the best time to be with such smart people and people that I haven't seen in so long. It's just been tremendous, and it's been very, very special to be with all of them. So happy National Solitaire Day. Yes, there is a day called National Solitaire Day. Why? I don't know, but let's just celebrate it because, we're playing with ourselves anyway. Take that any way you want. We may as well be playing solitaire. As I was mentioning earlier, Brian Solis, who just took a job at the small startup, we're not sure if they're going to make it, but we're crossing fingers. We hope that Salesforce makes it. You know, God knows they need to pay the rent of that beautiful building or many buildings. But what a wonderful company and what a beautiful match, Brian Solis at Salesforce. I just want to tell you, I'm so excited about what also lies ahead. On Sunday, on our Entrepreneur Edition, we've got a different kind of entrepreneur. We've got Mark Bombach, who is a screenwriter. He is the executive producer. He actually wrote the adapted screenplay and created Apple TV Plus's Defending Jacob. And if you haven't watched Defending Jacob, I am up to date. I binge watched it. He's going to tell us all about that. And I'm sure we'll talk about things like storytelling and how to tell stories in this day and age of COVID. Next week, I do not have an interview. I do not have a Corona TV on Monday. I'm taking off. It's Memorial Day. I am working in the morning, but I'm taking a break from you, which doesn't mean I love you any less. But Jessica Joins is on Tuesday, then Dave Delaney. Adam Klein, who was, he has won Survivor, and he was one of the finalists. He was on Winners at War. He's going to be joining me on Thursday, and then Hall of Famer speaker Scott McCain is going to join us on Friday. Did I say Adam on Thursday, Scott? I am just so enthralled and excited to have so many diverse people. Also, Corona TV is growing, and I mean kind of literally growing. So both Seth Sparks and Steve Garfield sent in photos to show how they're watching Corona TV on the big screen, on multiple screens. It's just amazing to see, not to see, but to like understand how people consume you, in what capacity, on what sizes, in what rooms, etc. Whether they're time shifting, whether they're watching live, etc. So I just wanted to do a little shout out to you guys. Thank you for watching, and thank you for sharing. Happy Facebook birthdays to a whole bunch of people. You can see who you are, you know who you are, but just make sure that you remember you are never alone as long as you are in quarantine. And then, of course, on LinkedIn as well, happy birthday to all of you. And finally, just don't think that I'm, the ego is inflating. It isn't. I'm not at the Hamptons. Corona TV, I hope it only grows in quality and not quantity. A reminder that Corona TV is dedicated to you guys and to my guests, to helping people. And, Bob, this whole week, Bob, you are the sole sponsor of the show. If you suck at Zoom, Bob will help you suck less. As I said in my book, Built to Suck, the key to success is to suck less, and Bob will help you suck less on Zoom. So how about that for a little bit of a lightning round? That was, I said to Brian, I'd bring him on at about 2:05, 2:06. It is 2:06. It's time to bring him on. And wait a second. Where is he? He's gone. Oh, there. You bastard. I was like, come on.
I was going to make a joke about the preamble, but no, that's...
Make the joke. I can take it. Was it too much pre for you? Was it too much pre or too much amble?
No. It was hilarious. It was just enough time to figure out a nice joke to play.
Well, the joke was on me. As I often say, you want people to laugh with you, but sometimes they laugh at you. And it doesn't matter whether they're laughing with or at, as long as they're laughing. And laughing is always going to be better than crying. So there you go.
Well, it's wonderful to see your face, my friend. It's been a very, very long time, and it's always a pleasure to spend any moment with you virtually.
Exactly. Welcome to the Hamptons as well.
Thank you. This is actually my first time in the Hamptons, so I appreciate it.
And it's probably my first time as well in the Hamptons. So there you go. Brian, I think I want to start off with, it's not small news. It's pretty big news. You joining Salesforce. And I will tell you before I hand it off to you, I believe that every single large company needs to have someone like you being an evangelist for them. I feel that companies in general don't have that clarity of message and sometimes messenger. And so I'm a huge supporter of big monolithic corporations or even smaller companies having a spokesperson, a figurehead, someone who is credible, influential, articulate, authentic, being able to evangelize on their behalf. So I just want to wish you congratulations and give you a moment to talk a little bit about the position, why you joined them, what you're going to be doing for them, etc.
Well, thank you. You'll probably see, hashtag dream job attached to a lot of tweets of the Ohana at Salesforce, because it really is. I'm joining a team that actually I admire. So on my direct team, I have folks that I get a chance to work with, like Vala Afshar, Charlie Isaacs, Peter Coffey, Bruce Richardson, John Tashik, who's my boss, Matthew Sweezy. There's so many smart people on the team who are all in their own right former analysts, influencers, evangelists, and that's a rare. I mean, it's just a rare breed of an organization that realizes the caliber of talent and what that talent can do for an organization, for inspiring customers to think differently, to help them move differently, and especially in these times. So Salesforce is really unique in that regard. I do agree with you that more organizations need to think like Salesforce in terms of hiring, whatever you want to call them, evangelists or just smart people thinking differently about the space and not going out to the market in a commercial sense, just helping to inspire, helping to educate, and also learning from a lot of the things that are happening and bringing that learning internally as well. So what I get to do is I'm coming directly to Salesforce after being an analyst for so long, but also a speaker and an author and just a thinker to help cast a new light on a subject that is maybe been overused and sort of lost its value and lost its way, which is digital transformation. The same is true for other topics that I'm going to cover, which is innovation and also experience design and service design, and really try to bring some humanity and some meaning and some fresh thinking to those subjects. And in the last few weeks alone, I've just been so inspired and so motivated from the stories that I'm hearing from customers and from internal thought leaders, which has just sparked big thinking that I haven't really allowed myself to explore in a long time. And those articles, for example, in Fast Company, I introduced this concept of every company needing to become a digital health company now. And in another series with Vala, we talked about the introduction of the novel economy instead of calling it the new normal. In another piece that just ran in ZDNet yesterday or the day before, I introduced the concept of hiring an AI futurist at the C level, and what that could do, especially in these pandemic times. So it's a lot of just enthusiasm thrown back at you with that question. But it's the most interesting thing is that I don't even know all of the things that I'm going to do yet. But so far, since I joined on March 30th, I feel like it's been a lifetime already of just awesome.
And the thing that jumps out at me is it's helping you think and think again and think differently and think of all of these new original thoughts. And I think Corona TV has given me that gift. It is a gift to realize that your mind is fertile, that you are not stagnating or becoming stale, that creativity is flourishing. Just so many new concepts have come out of this in conversations that I've had. In some cases, it's being inspired by people like you, that actually it almost becomes like intellectual volleying or playing a tennis match. But the ability for us to build on top of this, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about the novel economy. I love that concept. I mean, I felt like a pit bull digging my teeth into a piece of raw flesh. That's how I felt about it. So we'll get there. But I wanted to actually just shift gears slightly to something else, which is I was at South by Southwest. Remember South by Southwest when we used to have events? Remember that? And you had just launched LifeScale. It was last year's South by Southwest. And you gave a little talk to all of your adoring fans that came to see you, including myself. And I was really struck by the things you said. I never forgot them. And it almost seemed like I don't even want to call it contrarian. It's almost like you'd come full circle to talk about the dark side of social media and some of the warnings about addiction and depression, things that could not be more relevant right now with people at home in quarantine, showing off their Hamptons apartments, becoming depressed by watching too much news, being confused about fake news and not sure what to trust and who to trust. And I think you were ahead of your time, but your time has come now to be able to tell that story. And so I wanted you to, I almost have a question I ask all authors now, which is now during COVID-19, what has changed with your book? What would you update your book? What addendum would you provide? I'm not even sure that you necessarily would want to. You would just say, no, I'm just going to tell the story of this book. But I would love for you to kind of comment on what I said, and more importantly, what your book brings to the table.
Thank you. I mean, coming from you, someone who I've admired, especially in terms of thinking over the years, that means a lot coming from you. To go back before we hit the life scale, I think that's what's happening, and what you're seeing is sort of this renaissance of creativity and thinking. Salesforce is the direct result of my life scale journey. So when I was writing the book, I did the things that became the book to sort of cast into the future of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And creativity was a big part of that. And coming to life scale and answering your question about what I would do differently in a COVID environment, I would probably put in the subtitle how to improve wellness and happiness and creativity in times of a great pandemic. That's the only change I would make, because the rest of the book is it's exactly written for these times. I'll be completely honest with you. The book really resonated with people who had a high emotional IQ, that they were empathetic in that they knew that something was off in their life, that maybe their relationship with smartphones, social media, gaming, Netflix had taken a certain toll, but they couldn't quite put their finger on what it was. They just knew something was off. That was I since learned that was a very finite audience. So in comparison to all of the other books I've written, this one has performed not the best, is probably a good way to put it. Because it turns out that psychologically, I've since learned that people do not know that there is anything wrong with their current technology habits, because it is normal. They only realize that something's off when something bad happens. And truth be told, that's how I found out I had a problem, which was trying to write the follow-on to X. I couldn't get past the proposal stage because I had lost my ability to stoke deep flow, to stoke deep creativity on demand, to dive and to stay there. And it was something that I didn't lose overnight. I just had been losing it over the years. I had noticed that my research reports, writing, the editing were going through much greater cycles. So after deep reflection, and after I stopped blaming writer's block, it turns out
Not being there.
it turns out that I gave that sense of purpose all the research about, well, what we could just fast track, give everybody the shortcut. What makes these things so usable, we'll just use that word, and why we use them so often is because they're designed to change your behaviors. So certain apps, things as simple as the like button, things like challenges on TikTok, all of those things are designed to make you do something new and different that you didn't do before, because in doing that, that's how they get you to spend more time on the platform and to create more content and to consume more content. So no sinister plans behind this. It's just a way of getting more of your attention, because that's how they monetize the platform. The consequence is also what I studied. So I studied how they do that, and then also what happens, because how they do that can be used for good and for bad. It's called persuasive design. It's actually a course taught at Stanford University by a brilliant man named B.J. Fogg and others, that essentially had effects intellectually, emotionally, and biologically that I ended up learning quite a bit about. And those things are now much more important in a pandemic than they were when the book was originally released. And the reason why is because we are throwing ourselves deeper into our relationship with technology, not as a distraction, but more now as a coping mechanism, as a means of allowing ourselves to escape the reality of being in quarantine or shelter in place, or the sadness of all of the news that we see all of the time, or the struggles with the misinformation, or the frustration with the response of certain elected officials in helping us navigate this or helping us lead this successfully and unified in a unified sense. So long, kind of long diatribe coming back. Life scale is a means of which isn't about so much our relationship with technology. I think I only spend the first chapter or so talking about that. It's really about the effects on our personal creativity, our personal wellness, and then also our ability to be happy. And all of those things are intrinsically tied to how we use technology. If you think about what happens behind the screen, we're constantly trying to keep up. We're constantly scrolling. Our brains and our bodies are accelerating, trying to keep up with all of those things. And we rewire our brains and our bodies to do so. And we also then change our behaviors that take away from actually all of the things that allow us to be unique, getting the semblance or giving the semblance of being unique in how we express ourselves in these platforms through filters or what have you, and then earning the validation of engagement and likes and comments and followers as sort of this means that we're on the right path. So in the pandemic world, LifeScale has roared back to life in a way that I hope more people take this time to realize that the silver lining, the blessing in all of this, is that you can take a moment without FOMO, you're not missing out on much, to look at where you are, compare that to where you think you were, and then ultimately connect the dots to where you want to be and who you want to be. Because what I learned in the very hard way was that I was not where I thought I was. And that trajectory of where I actually was nowhere near where I wanted to go. And that was a big realization. That was a big life-changing moment.
So I have to tell you that, and I mean this as the ultimate compliment, I found myself almost drifting I was so relaxed watching you. First of all, you sound magnificent. The voice, the microphone, I was so relaxed and so focused on you that I almost found myself drifting off to sleep, like being the most, but engaged completely, not the, the opposite of bored, as in this is like therapy for me. This is therapeutic, hearing your voice and hearing what you're saying. I didn't check the comments coming in from Facebook or LinkedIn. I didn't want to be anywhere else but right here. And that is a gift. Thank you for that gift. Just listening to you, how profound that was. Brian, the other thing that I took away from that is, and I've had that as well, you have to be an innovator. You have to be on the cutting edge, the leading edge, the bleeding edge. You have to be so close to something that you lose perspective in order to gain that perspective, in order to realize that the very things that you evangelized have become soured or need to be managed, that too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And I think that is my takeaway, that we all advocated on behalf. But then when everybody, it's one thing to use, it's a different thing to abuse. And it's a different thing altogether to then say, you know what, time to take a step back and find the balance, because everything is about balance and equilibrium. And so thank you for that.
Well, thank you. The last thing I'll just say on that on that front is, I don't. You can't sell a book about managing distractions if people don't actually recognize that they're being distracted or that they're being taken away from something else. And I think that's the important part, is that it's about balance, but it's also about self-awareness and understanding that when something is designed to change your behaviors, it does so without your permission. And when you change, I mean, this is for many of us being on social media or mobile phones, I mean, it's a greater part of over 10 years, that the more that those new features or new apps change us, just picture, if you will, sort of this center of reference that we have in life. And in that center of reference are our core values and our belief system. And this is where we think we are. But every time a new app or service introduces persuasive design to change your behavior, it pushes you slowly. And if you compare 10 years ago to today, your center of reference is so far from where you thought it was that it's not just about balance. Now you've been changed at your very core. Your values of what you deem is important to you when you wake up and when you go to bed, what you do in between going to bed and waking up, or waking up and going to bed, what you do in that time is based on this different you. And so you're actually not making decisions that are in your longer term benefit. And this is why the solution to all of this wasn't necessarily just digital detoxing or meditating. It was actually recentering yourself where you want to be so that you know where you want to go. And that's where the name Life Scaling came to be, was understand who and where you are and who and where you want to be, and then scaling your life intentionally every day in that direction. And what was a profound realization for me is that the more I did this, as I was learning and researching how to craft this journey, it was a human process. It's not unlike how you beat addiction in other areas.
Right.
And to scale your way in a new direction, turns out that early on you have this vision of yourself, but as you start to go there intentionally, your eyes open more, your mind and heart open more, and you see and feel things differently. So you actually learn how to change your path in a much more meaningful way as you go, because you are in a much better and open place to do so.
So Brian, you're helping me be a lot more diligent about a 30-minute show. And I know you're on a deadline. So in 3.5 minutes left, I would love for you to define the novel economy, because novel virus, the novel coronavirus, a novel economy. What is the novel economy? And then very, very briefly, we'll move through the 3 phases, and that can tease people to go and seek this out. And I certainly will provide a link to this wonderful article.
Wonderful. Well, it's certainly, it was introduced in an interview series with my colleague Vala Afshar at ZDNet. And it was a preview of a piece that I'm actually working on, which is the official introduction of the novel economy. What inspired this, for those who know my work, and also for those who don't, I have been driven by being a digital anthropologist and learning how to become one as technology has changed us over time to study new norms, behaviors, etc. So I've always put the human at the center of all of my work. And the novel economy was a name I wanted to give these times. So instead of using uncertain times or the new normal, I wanted to give it a name so that we could put our arms around it and cast it in a much more productive light. So the novel economy is inspired by the novel coronavirus, because novel itself means new and unusual. And there is no playbook for these times. There are no people with pandemic experience at this level to say, here's what you need to do, 1, 2, 3. So instead it breaks down essentially the next 36 months, because until we have an active universal treatment and eventually a vaccine, we're going to have to navigate these times much differently and much more carefully. So the first one is where we are right now, which is just sort of survive. Business continuity, personal wellness and continuity, just kind of finding our footing, I guess is a good way to put it. We could talk about this later in terms of technological advancement, but just think about it this way. At some point, we're going to have to shift into phase 2, which is what I call alive, which is essentially starting to operate and also think about the new business model, and then building an infrastructure to support that new business model, right? So you can assume that people are going to be much more digital, that they're going to be probably self-sheltering in place for longer periods of time. And then that means you're going to have to create new products, services, processes. And then the third one is thriving, is once you get good at actually operating in this new environment, in this novel environment, you can now then start to spread your wings and think differently about how you compete differently, how you gain greater market share, how you invent and how you innovate. So it was a framework to help people think positively about how we move forward, instead of just holding on to what we think we might be going back to, because we're not. And quite honestly, I believe that there were many aspects of normal that were part of the big problem to begin with.
You can find Brian Solis wherever the name Brian Solis exists, on all the socials, briansolis.com. Brian, we wish you, you don't need luck because you have skill and you have talent and you have heart, but we will be following you and your journeys on behalf of Salesforce. Thank you for giving us back something, which is the ability for us to take that step back in order to realize what's important. And what's important to me is our friendship and having you on today. So I'll give you the final word, and then we're going to catch up over the weekend or one of the weekends.
Thank you for your friendship, and thank you for this opportunity. And I'll just leave everyone with this. You have this choice, right? You make the most of this moment. We came into this a certain way, and it really is an opportunity to come out of this a certain way. And it's an opportunity and a challenge for each and every one of us. It's not one that I'm actually just coming out of lightly. I've spent a great amount of time thinking differently and feeling differently, and I'm choosing to come out of this in a new and an optimized and profoundly inspired way. And I wish you the same, and I wish you the best, and also I wish you great health, wellness, and happiness. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Well, that was Brian Solis, and I must say, keeping the show to more or less 30 minutes is great. It makes me work harder, and it makes everything a little bit tighter. I'm not saying that we're not going to have 45-minute shows or 50-minute shows, or go to comments. In fact, you know, I will do that now. Now I can go and say hello to Joey and my brother in South Africa, and Luke is over here. He said, self-awareness indeed, our ability to learn how to unlearn. In other words, to adapt in a Darwinian way and hijack past behavior towards innovation. Very profound words. And Jackie Stone said, thank you both. Thank you, Jackie, for being a part of the show today. We are going to have a Zoom after show, but Brian will not be a part of that. You're just going to have to not come to the show so that you can hang out with me and whomever else comes. So bit.ly/CoronaTV after show, bit.ly/CoronaTV after show. We're going to be hanging out in the Zoom room in a few moments. I will be back on Sunday. I will not be here on Monday. I'm going to go and have a Memorial Day with my family. I hope you do too. I wish you nothing but health and health and health and happiness in that order. Take care, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.